Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Happy New Year! I mean, I said that in the last one, but this is the first one I'm actually recording in the new year, whereas the last one aired on the first day of the new year. So you know what? I'm gonna say it again. January is finally just here, and dude, I'm overwhelmed thinking about how the rest of this month is gonna go. I mean, all of you already know the crazy amounts of games and stuff that are coming out. We've been talking about it for months at this point. And it's finally upon us. So the doomsday of January is, or doom month, I suppose, it's underway. But I'm entertaining myself before that. I'll be doing a Hap's thoughts on Khuja Cross probably in the next couple days, because I actually went out of my way to play it. And if somebody asks me about it in the question thread, I'll try to keep the answer short, but I have a lot to say about that game. But on that note, I'm going to do the sponsor thanking at the end of the video, and I also have something I want to say to the sponsors in the video itself. So let's get started with the actual questions that are followed by answers. All right, question number 1. Fair warning, this will be a bit long, but being my first post, can you slog through the whole thing? You know what? You were polite enough to ask, so yes. Relatively new to 14, longtime fan of the series, starting with Final Fantasy 1, and even played 11 for well over a decade. Meaning, you played past level 99 cap, which is impressive. Many complain calling it lazy rips, but I love it. So you like when the 11 stuff shows up in 14. I've been consuming a lot of your backlog as I continue to take in 14's older content. As sort of a belated thanks, I offer you my first time bonuses for being able to pull your favorite armor set and weapons from 11 into 14. I don't really have an answer for that, because I just don't. A lot of Final Fantasy 11 gear doesn't really appeal to me. It just doesn't, and it just doesn't. So I don't have a great answer for that one. On to the meat. How do you feel about some jobs being able to do different roles, changing movesets in the menu? So this is actually a question that I've gotten on this show quite a few times. It's been a while, but I'm reading through your making examples, ninja tanking, red mage being support, yada yada yada, you know, all that stuff. I'm okay with the idea. The problem with that is you pretty much need every job to be able to do it, or none of the jobs are basically going to be able to do it. That's just the way I see it. First of all, we're never going to have a true support role in this game. If you want to support, you pretty much play either a DPS that has a lot of supporting tools in it, like Bard or Red Mage. Red Mage really just having the res, I suppose, and the heal. You know, whatever. We'll go with that. Or you play a healer. That's just what it is. We're never going to branch out of the Holy Trinity. I don't care what he said 4 years ago when he was talking about hybrid just. It's not going to happen. All right, it's just not going to happen. As for being able to do it, I mean, pretty much all the DPS then need to get a tank or a healer spec, because you're not going to give the DPS 2 DPS specs. I don't think that's going to intrigue people in our game as much as it does in a game maybe like World of Warcraft. And then on top of that, then the tanks, same deal. Tanks either have to. The tanks most likely end up with Paladin, ends up with healer, and the other two end up with DPS. And then healers, it's all the same thing. Me, personally, I'm okay with the idea when executed properly. I don't think taking 15 current jobs and basically changing their movesets to make it so they can fill 2 roles is something we'll either A, ever see them undertake, or B, something I don't think we particularly need. We already have a bad enough time balancing the tanks and the healers that we have. People are already so much in the meta talk. That's the essential. It's equal to doubling the amount of jobs in the game if you were to just give them all 2 options. And I hear that conversation enough. I don't need to hear that conversation anymore. Final Fantasy 11, it was fine because there was no balance in that game. The developers did whatever the fuck they wanted because they just didn't care. Like, fuck it, here you go. This, you guys are doing that. All right, here you go. This, they just didn't care. It was like, you can just play that job alone. Who cares? Just whatever. It's you're not getting invited to parties. That's great, fantastic. Go tell me about it in 5 years when no one's playing our game anymore. You know, it's fine for that, but it's not gonna. I just don't see it being an undertaking that ends up being worth the amount of time invested in Final Fantasy 14. It's not a bad idea, though. If they undertook it, if they did it right, I think it could work fine. I just don't think it's something they ever will do or something that our community could ever quite process in terms of game balance. Going on to number 2. Hey, Mr. Happy, long-time lurker, first-time asker. Please accept the bonus of a fused minion of a koala Joey riding a Shiba Inu. That's a brilliant idea, and hire this man, please. I and several free company mates want to go to FanFest. We're working on lodging and other logistics, but since you are a veteran, would you mind breaking down some things that would be helpful for a FanFest sprout to know? So first of all, honestly, this is going to sound really stupid. Stand a lot before you go. Like, if you're someone who sits for a living like me, go out, walk around the block like every day for like 40 minutes before you go. Because the majority of your FanFest experience is going to be standing, waiting in a line, and then sitting down for 5 minutes and then doing it all over again. That's going to be the majority of your experience. Or walking around to talk to people, or maybe checking out Las Vegas, or whatever it is you're going to do. It's something, honestly, you should do for every convention if you're not someone who's super active, if you don't like have a standing desk, or you're just not someone who goes out and does these kinds of events very often. In terms of lodging, be as close as possible to the convention center. Being in the same hotel as the convention center is nice, but not mandatory. There's a few hotel options, specifically around the Rio where it was 2 FanFests ago, that are okay, that are within walking distance. I didn't stay in the Rio the first time we went to the FanFest. I was in the Rio. As for anything else, bring lots of cash, specifically for the merch store. Be ready to be fast on your feet, by the way, getting to the merchandise store. Again, fingers crossed it's even better than last time, which was actually still better than the time before, but it's still a pain in the ass. Also, because you're all working on lodging already, one important thing to remember, make sure everyone who's working on their lodging now actually gets tickets, and that you have a backup plan in case anyone who's in your free company is unable to obtain a ticket. They're not unlimited tickets, and very often people say, I wanted to go, but I didn't get a ticket. If you're working on all this shit now, make sure you have a contingency plan in case one of the people you're making the plans with doesn't get a ticket. But whether that be the fact that you all need to be willing to pay more for the lodging, pay more for whatever costs you're sharing, or whatever plans you may have had with or without that person. Just make sure you're ready to adjust them based on the number of people that actually get in. If you're all fast, you're all there, you're all ready to go, you should be okay, but can never be 100% certain. There's other things I could say, but they're all like tiny little details. Just keep those few things. Oh, by the way, double up on socks and hygiene and all that shit too, because Vegas isn't exactly the cleanest place, and you're going to be sweating in there, so just be ready for that. All right, next question. Hey, Haps, you talked about the PvP tournament on this week's State of the Realm. I'm not sure you have a match. I'm not sure you have seen a match in the Feast in its current iteration, but it's not exciting at all. This man is smart. Do you think the Feast could possibly be a big esports thing? No. I think that these tournaments are... I think they're going to try the tournaments for a while. I think that it's going to be something that's good for the community, but if it doesn't do like good things, like enough of an impact on Final Fantasy XIV in terms of their marketing strategy and everything, you're going to see them abandon it. Like, I think that watching a match of the Feast is interesting when somebody is shoutcasting them. Just watching it on its own merits, not so much. I mean, that's true of a lot of games that are esports, though. There's very few games I can watch that are esports, that are like current and like good for it, that I can just watch without the actual atmosphere of a tournament. And who knows, maybe Feast ends up being the same way. But it really has to be a personality or explanations or something for people that aren't as hardcore as the players themselves to get them into it and to get them talking about it and participating in it. So that's going to be the thing they need to work on the most, as opposed to like worrying about having a spectator mode and all this. Yeah, you need those things, but those aren't what make you successful. Those are just the tools you need to even try. So we'll see what they actually end up doing on that front. But they can't just have like the community team do shoutcasting. Like, you need to get people who are experienced already in that industry and get them, hire them, pay them some money, put them on board for like a few things here and there, and then see how people respond to it, because there's really nothing else that's worth doing, because that's just going to be the most important thing. All right, next question. Hey, Haps, hope your 2018 is going amazingly thus far. Oh, and how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. So last week I didn't have a question, but I wish... Oh, by the way, my new year is going okay so far. It's been really good on the Twitch side of things. YouTube, I'm still kind of taking it slow, making sure I don't burn myself out before the end of the month. You know, the usual. So last week I didn't have a question, but I wish I did help you out. But I wish I did to help you out with the thread. No, I fucked up last week. Last week's thread was the one that I forgot to post the questions. the link to the where people can ask questions, I didn't post it in the YouTube until like Friday, and then I take the questions on Sunday. So don't worry, you ain't gotta say nothing. Let's see. So I want to cheer you up a little bit. I'm not a very social person, nor do I like to watch a lot of YouTube vids. Also, lack of time with work and other projects. You're one of the few YouTubers I follow because you're a great guy, very informed and down to earth. Thank you. You and a few others like Angry Joe. I love Angry Joe. Like, I met him in person, and I said it was Mr. Happy, and he was just like, "We can't be friends." And I was like, "I understand." It was obviously it's a joke, but it was still funny. Have been a big influence on me to the point where finally lighting a fire under my ass and starting your own channel. Wanted to for a very long time, but I lack confidence. A very big thank you. Thank you, and best of luck. And yes, I have a question. 2 weeks ago, I asked about the Mr. Happy Flare and Dauntless. Said you needed more to give away. I have more to give away. You were the person who I said that if I got more, I'd let you know. I got more. So here's what you do. If you, first of all, a tip if you're making a YouTube channel, make social media accounts. Don't just be like, fuck social media, because it's a great way. Just tweet at me, and I'll just tweet you one. Or I'll DM you one, or something. There you go. So I have more. I have a bunch. So get them. There you go. All right, next one. Hi, Mr. Happy. How are you? Doing all right. How are you, good sir and or madam? I heard you bringing up video game pricing in response to people complaining about microtransactions. Wondering if you consider the fact that the number of copies sold has gone up drastically over the past few decades. Yeah, I also, if you read the comments as well, the cost, when I said the cost of making a game is higher, it's not so much that the cost is, it's that a lot of companies hire more people, and a lot of times they honestly don't need that many more people. We see that with indie games that are made by like 3 people and are fucking stellar. And then you have these companies hiring like way more people than they need to crank out a game every year. And they're spending more than they could if they just fucking just didn't. How about that? Just fucking hire less people and stop releasing a game every year. Because then your sales go down and you get a bad rep, and there's a whole other thing with that. Civ 1 was considered a successful game for its time and it sold only 850,000 copies in its first 5 years. Where Civ 5 sold 6 million copies in its first 4 years. Man. Civ deserves it, though. Civ also had the benefit of having 3 more games before Civ 5, and all of them being fucking quality games. The increase in units sold is almost a 1,000% increase in revenue. The point is that while we don't know exactly what game budgets are for studios like that, we can look at other things like their margin percentage, units sold, net income, all that stuff. Yeah, it's profited more the last 7 years, but profits are as the last 3, okay. Didn't mean to be argumentative. Felt you really reconsider these factors. No, so it's not so much about you're not considering factors, it's that ultimately, gaming is a business nowadays. That's what it is. There's a million different ways to use gaming as a business, and that's what it is. They want profit. They're not trying to just make a game and sell a game. They're trying to make a game, sell the game, and make a shit ton more money. And what companies started seeing is people being willing to do microtransactions, being like, well, if people are doing it, then we're just not gonna fucking ignore that shit. Throw it out there. And people kept doing it, and then finally, one game in particular pushed everyone over the edge. So now companies are rolling back that idea a little bit, and we'll see where the actual budgeting and focus on marketing and sales actually goes to in the future. Because it's going to be interesting seeing how companies aren't going to backpedal all the way. They're going to backpedal for now while it's still a hot topic, and then they're going to fucking go back and do it again. Because people are still willing to spend money on that shit. So we'll have to see where it actually goes. But man, Civ 5 sold 6 million copies. That game deserves it, dude. All the Civ games are fucking quality. Civ 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Man, all those games just got better and better and better. I miss Civ. I haven't played Civ in years. I'm not going to play Civ, so don't ask. But yeah, no, there's a bunch of factors in it. Now we got to see how the industry rolls around again going forward. All right, next question. Hey, Mr. Happy. Final Sim here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy. Mr. Happy, always a weekly show where I ask a question, you answer. Damn. I asked Asher who's the richest player, and he said the richest player has 32 billion gil. How can he carry 32 billion gil? Lots of characters. Easy answer. You think you'll be able to kill Ultimate Bahamut before next patch? At this point, no. I don't have a group for it, and I'm not going to beg one of the groups that beat it already to take me along. I've seen the 4th trio. The hardest part of the fight is it's probably the double, the nail plus twin phase, which is what I've yet to see. And I'm not going to ask a group who already spent like weeks and weeks and weeks to be like, hey, listen, I know you guys beat it already, but I can learn real quick, and I can do the numbers. I can show you what I have. I'm not going to do that shit. Because they're item level capping it, I'm actually not that worried about that. I do want to get it done at the appropriate item level, and so thank God they're item level capping that shit. They're capping at 345, but that's because material always gets fucked over with item level caps and shit. So no, I mean, not having a static for ultimate is like you can't just not have a static for ultimate. I either need to be filling for a group constantly, or I need to go ninja. one of the two. Feels bad, man. All right, next question. Hey, I didn't forget you. Hey, let's see what we got. My take on the X-Bone, surviving the field, and here's a loot box. Japanese symbol as a smiley face. I don't know which one to pick. I'm going to take, here's a loot box. Gotcha. What do game publishers nowadays love to do? Wait, why do game publishers nowadays love to do hardcore anti-consumer? I think I kind of already answered this. Gaming is business, like more so nowadays than it was years ago. I think that entire answer kind of encapsulates it, so I'm not going to make that my pick. My take on the X-Bone, then, is what the other one will go. I have a huge respect for those who don't regret purchasing an Xbox One at launch. I mean, don't you agree that the Xbox One's presentation is historic and its misguided badness? I feel like I just got memed 3 times, but at least I'm laughing on, like, one of the other questions I had before. The Xbox One wasn't a great... To be fair, I still look back and I take the way the Xbox One was presented over the way the Xbox One X was presented. This has the most games that a system's ever had at launch. It's only all the titles we had before, except for the companies that made them 4K, we're counting them as launch titles. And then they asked the companies, like, don't you think that's a little arrogant? The guy's like, no, it's perfectly true. I'm just like, all right. Also, the Xbox One X has the number of units that sold in Japan, which is not, Xbox has never been big in Japan, so it's not really relevant, but it makes me smile and laugh, so that's good. All right, next question. Happy Sunday, Mr. Happy, and happy Monday to my future self. And you know what? Happy Monday to my future self, too, who's not watching this tomorrow because I hear enough of my own damn voice. I liked your video on the mainline Final Fantasy title. So, from this list, which game is your favorite, least favorite, and which games have you not played? Feel free to go in this much. Okay, so these look like other titles. I have not played the After Years. Dirge of Cerberus. Let's not talk about Dirge of Cerberus. I played it to completion, 100%. Let's move on. Crisis Core, love that game. Didn't play it, didn't 100% it, didn't like get absolutely everything, but played many hours. 10-2, I did talk about 10-2 in that thing. I said one of the best combat systems in the Final Fantasy games. I just have to mute the rest of the game. Final Fantasy 12 Revenant Wings, never played it. Final Fantasy Tactics 2, not A2 specifically, not played it. Final Fantasy 13-2, Kai's Balds, I love that guy as a villain. I want him in Dissidia. The story of 13-2 in its own was okay, but the fact that it made all Final Fantasy 13 story meaningless fucking pissed me off. Also, it has a DLC ending, which I never approve of. I want the canon DLC ending, let me rephrase, that I'm not a fan of. And Lightning Returns, I love the combat system, hated everything else about that game. Yeah, for why only A2? A2 is the only game set in 12's world and involves characters. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't play it. So maybe one day. And this is the last question on the forums. Hello, Mr. Happy. Happy New Year to you. Today, I had 2 questions. Happy New Year to you as well. 1, so currently I feel like all the jobs of 14 are very samey, with their main focus on the healers, tanks, and DPS, just to squeeze out as much DPS as possible, which I think undermines a little class diversity. Do you think there's room for 14 class time for a class that sacrifices DPS in return for utility, like the opposite of a samurai? For example, a dancer is a healer that will have restricted heals but high DPS buffs in return, or a green mage healer that will compensate weaker heals through shield and damage mitigation. I mean, they are designed the way you're describing, where certain jobs are given trade-offs for having more utility. What you're missing, though, is ultimately your goal is to put the boss down. So with that always being the center goal, which it is, and which it rightfully should be with bosses outside of gimmicky stuff like healing the things in Shinryu, which has been used in other MMOs before. That's always going to be, if you have mastered the other elements of your job, the only step left is how much more DPS can you do. There's no reason to have any more utility. There's no reason to have anything else there. And every job does have its own method of maximizing and class diversity. The way you maximize on a job doesn't always feel the same as every other job that you're playing. And that's where the class diversity comes, is the actual feel of maximizing and then going that extra step to, you know, use your utilities that you have or your role actions that you have more properly. What you've described is almost more like a hybrid and less like a job with a trade-off. And hybrids come with their own set of issues that need to have the entire game balanced around them. And it's something, again, I said it earlier, I don't think they'll ever undertake something along those lines, like going the full route of a hybrid. Because ultimately, if the boss is dead, you've won the fight. So that's all that's ever going to really matter to people. And anything that helps you get there a little easier or a little faster is always going to be what's most valuable. That one also had a second question that I almost forgot about. What are the games you are looking forward to coming out this year on the PC? Other than Monster Hunter World, I feel like there aren't any interesting games announced specifically on PC. Like, there's games that I'll play on PC, but games that are specifically launching for... I never keep track of games that are specifically launching for PC. Because, as far as I'm concerned, that means I also have to track the games that are coming out on Xbox, and I don't care. So, sorry. I like making that joke. I'm sorry. So specifically PC, I don't know. I just don't pay attention to like when a PC only game is coming out. Here's a little gem that some of you might enjoy. Sinner's Sacrifice for Redemption. It's a Souls type boss battler that's going to have, I think, 8 bosses total. But when you beat a boss, it weakens your character. Or in order to challenge different bosses, you have to sacrifice something on your character for... It could be healing items, it could be non-healing items, it could be your attack power, your health. So by the time you get to the 8th boss, you've essentially given up all of your strongest attributes. And then the 8th boss is when you're actually at your weakest, which sounds like it's got like a reverse progression system in a sense in terms of character growth. But it makes the approach of getting to that 8th boss interesting because you can choose to take on any of the first 7 bosses in any way that you want, and you can even respawn the boss and get your power back and try a different order. So I believe that's a PC only game. I could be wrong. That might also be PS4, but I don't remember enough about it off the top of my head. But I got to play that at an event. Now I'm almost sure it's also a PS4 title. Yeah, I don't know. PC only, I got nothing. Something that's PC only, I got nothing. There's games that'll probably come out on multiple platforms I'll play on PC, but PC exclusive, dude, my hair just got randomly fucking stupid, like when I did this once. I don't know. I got nothing on the top of my head. All right, and that is the last question that is on the forum. So I'm going to move over to the Twitch chat here. We got through those pretty quick. So if we can get a few decent questions from the Twitch chat, you know what? I'll take those. So Twitch chat, go for it. So the first question from the chat I have is, Mr. Happy, what do you think about watching videos before doing content? Are you for or against it? I think that when it comes to games that involve playing with other people or working on a team with other people, some people can tolerate being thrown into groups with random people. Some people can't. It all depends on what your mentality is and if you make any conscious efforts to surround yourself with like-minded people. If a certain culture, like for example, the pug culture, is to watch a video beforehand, that's the generally accepted thing to do, then that's it. Like that's what you're gonna have to do. You know, you can't just be the one arrogant person who says, no, I'm not gonna do that, even though the resource is available, if the other 7 people have that expectation. If you want to be one of those people who doesn't watch the video, you generally want to be in a group of people you already know who are also saying, okay, let's do this without watching a video. Or you're in a group that goes in like the first day. Even in pickup groups, you go in the first day and try to learn it before everybody knows everything or before there's a video explaining the whole thing out. You gotta put yourself in the situations that complement the way you want to enjoy the game. You can't just throw yourself into the pool and hope that all the lifeguards jump in after you and help you out without you learning how to swim first. You know, that was, by the way, I like that thing I just said. I totally bullshitted it. I was about halfway through it. I said, I have no idea where I'm going with this. But that's how it is. You gotta adapt to the culture that you're placing yourself in, or put yourself in the culture that you want to be a part of. Next question I have is, with Relic Armor coming out as well, do you think they will follow the same sort of progression path as the weapon, or do you think they'll have the way to work on them in a different way? I think it'll be very similar to the weapon. I mean, we also don't know how Eureka's going to progress them in the first place. We don't know if Eureka's going to do something like Palace of the Dead, where you can gain armor and weapon levels and then convert them into the armor itself, or if you can choose to convert them in order to push the armor like further in, like almost like as an alternate way of grinding light. We don't have enough answers yet. We'll find out February 10th. But I do think that the weapon and the armor are going to have the same type of progression path. Next question. Hello, it's been a while. Hello. What do you think of the current gearing system? I feel you can't actually play multiple roles in endgame until it's close to the next tier. I've always been like 50-50 on that. The idea of like, I've never liked the idea of you can raid once as every job. Like, some people want to take it to that extreme. I'm someone who likes the idea, though, that instead of being raid locked or loot locked completely for the week, that at least tank, healer, DPS, you can run it once on each, and that gives you multiple gearing options, especially on weeks where you can grind. It also sometimes the raiders, a lot of raiders I know make multiple characters in order to achieve what you're saying. They'll have a character where they're gearing up. They're like maybe 2 or 3 jobs, which they can do if they're running the raid every week, and on top of that, they're getting tomestones every week. And then they'll make another character where they're gearing up 2 or 3 other jobs, and they'll keep doing that. And then they'll have one character that's healers, one character that's tanks, because those are easy to kind of group together since they all share all the gears. And then for the DPS, they can do the rest. As for is it okay the way it is now? It's kind of shit. I'm not a huge fan of the way it is now. I like that they unlocked Savage early, as opposed to waiting until the next even numbered patch. But the tomestones are still locked, and that's kind of problematic in its own way to have one locked, one unlocked kind of deal going on there. What they would do, I guess, other than what I suggested, I don't really know. I'm okay with the idea of making it so it's a little easier. Oh, one idea that I had was the idea of gear loaning, which is not where you loan a piece of gear to another player, but where if you have, let's say you have the upgraded tombstone body, you take it to an NPC and you say, I'd like to exchange this for the upgraded tombstone body of another job. You know, maybe my static needs me to change jobs, or maybe I want to try a different job. And they loan it to you for 2 weeks, and then if it's a permanent change, then you could choose to keep it, but the other piece is gone, and then lock that out. It's kind of too complicated, I guess, for our game. Like, just for the, I think people would be confused, really, by this whole loaning system. People would do it by accident, not make the right decision. But the idea of, if I need to change jobs for static, I'm not immediately fucked because none of my gear is saved. You know, especially when it comes to the DPS role. Something in those lines, like a safety net, would be really nice for at least a lot of players I know. Next one's easy. Mr. Happy, what do you think of the Sigmascape being, and they quote, which is from Yoshida's Q&A recently, the same level of difficulty as Deltascape, end quote. Good or bad move? We have Ultimate now, so I'm perfectly okay with it. I may not have gotten through Ultimate before January 30th, which is when I think the next patch will be, but we have what feels like a reasonable amount of content on both ends. I don't know how the World First race is going to go in Sigmascape. I don't know if the groups are going to be saving their time off for Ultimate, or if people are going to try to race through these 4 fights. I think anyone who's like the hardcore racing for World First either is going to have 2 separate groups, like a free company has one group that goes after World First and Savage, and one group that goes after it in Ultimate, or you're just going to have groups that completely abandon it and just only focus on the World First or the progression for Ultimate. And so for that, I think that it's okay to have Sigmascape be around the same difficulty as Deltascape. I think they could push it a little bit higher, especially in the terms of the first boss of the tier. But one of the big things this game doesn't have is a means for players to get into raiding. Deltascape and Creator have both been much better. I've seen a lot more people saying, oh my god, I'm too nervous, and then trying it and at least getting through the first couple of fights, sometimes into the 3rd and 4th fight. You know, it's birthed a new I guess age of raiders, people who are actually getting experience and will now go into the next raid tier, and then at some point may take on Ultimate. And that's what this game didn't have before, when they were like throwing the difficulty all over the place. That being said, I think it'd be better if Savage had 6 jobs. I think the progression growth of the bosses could be a little smoother if they did that. But I think it is the right decision for the game overall, even if it's not as satisfying for the super hardcore to have it at that place. Just to fix what I said, not 6 jobs, 6 bosses is what I meant to say. Next question, piggybacking off the last forum question, do you think tanks healers suffer too much in essentially being DPS hybrids? Would you enjoy higher outgoing damage or weaker healing mitigation be better? I think higher outgoing damage, or, you know, weaker outputs is another thing that's not really been talked about in terms of healing mitigation. Might be an okay thing. The only problem that we have right now is that if you're going to do higher outputs on tanks or weaker outputs on healing, and that's how they try to force people to maybe play to their role as opposed to playing to their job a little bit more, you have to do that in everything. You can't just do it in Savage and Ultimate. Ultimate already does it. First of all, and even there, people are still squeezing out no matter what. If anything, if you do that, people are going to really rail you even harder in those moments where you could be doing it, but you maybe don't want to because you've just not been doing it so much for the rest of the fight. it's tough to say how people would really react to it. But you'd have to do it in everything. You'd have to do it in dungeons. You'd have to do it in like fates. You'd have to do it everywhere because every player needs to be learning that type of mitigation, that type of healing, that type of damage taken everywhere. Otherwise, you as a developer have failed to teach your player base what the expected norm is. Now, people would argue maybe 14's already doing that because players have this expectation of doing so much DPS as those other two roles that aren't affiliated as such. But that more comes from just the mastery of it and them trying to make it so that these fights don't push you over the edge to the point where there's no room for any sort of self-expression in terms of how much skill and how much damage output you're actually able to do. There's so many ways you could take the argument that I don't think any of them are particularly wrong, but it's a tough thing. I'm not the one developing for it. I don't know what numbers we need to get to those exact spots, so it's hard for me to just say, yes, it should be this, and this way. All right, the next question I have here is, Mr. Happy, how much value does having a new primal fight... How much value does the new primal fight lose when Savage is released at the same time, along with normal mode at the same time? Considering we will likely have crafted weapons too. So it doesn't necessarily lose value, but the players who are going after each is much different when it's a situation like this. Let me think back to a time that I spent a good I wasn't doing prog necessarily. The last time I guess I could think back to when an extreme primal came out and a new Savage came out, and I didn't have a static at the time, would be Sephiroth. Sephiroth, so that's 3.2. What ended up happening was the groups, and I'm going to speak to you from a perspective in a free company where there's groups going for world first. And keep in mind that this is during Midas also, which took a little bit over 2 weeks. What people were doing then is they would have a group like me and a bunch of other people go into Sephiroth, figure out the fight, and then take them into the fight, get them their weapon, and then send them back into the raid tier. Sigmascape's probably going to take less than a day for the world first groups to kill. But what the world first groups won't have, for at least one of them might have it, but what most of them won't have going into the next week is a new weapon. Most of them aren't going to buy crafted weapons. Most people, I don't really know many people that go out of their way to get crafted weapons. There are people who do it. I don't see it very often, personally. So what ends up happening, if they're going to beat it in less than a day, like world first style, then like those groups are going to get the one weapon off the final boss plus the weapon token, and if that equals 2 weapons for the group, great. RNG almost never works out that way. But for the rest of the weeks, I mean, they still want a weapon upgrade. They want next week to be easier. They're going to hop over and grab the primal weapon because they want to beat the primal anyway, and a lot of them want to farm the pony. So it doesn't devalue it that much. It just, because the fight takes less than 20, because it's going to take less than 24 hours probably for Sigmascape to die, it just means that it's like a reverse order. They're going to do Sigmascape first and then farm the primal, because that's just what their priorities are. So it doesn't really change too much. The players who don't have the priority of world first thing, they're probably going to bounce back and forth. Some of them are going to go immediately to the extreme primal and try to clear that first because, they want that before they hop in the Savage. And some people are going to hop in the Savage, and then when their group's not running, they might, or maybe when not everyone's in the mood or they don't feel like they're making a lot of progress, then they'll hop over to the extreme primal, and odds are by then there's at least some semblance of a strategy and they'll be going in and it won't be that bad. So it's not all that weird. It's just that it's a lot to take in all at once for a lot of players, and so figuring out the right order is really what matters most. All right, and with that last question, that is actually going to be a wrap for this week's Mondays with Mr. Happy. So thank you for your questions. We had a lot of good ones in the chat. I had a little bit of a discussion about people, about some things with people that I'm not throwing in the video. I do that every week, so if you want to see every single Q&A, usually you got to tune in live, because that's just where I answer the occasional oddball question or a question that I don't think I want to put in the video. So with that, we can move on into our sponsors over on Patreon. So I said I wanted to say something to the Patreon sponsors. I wanted to give you a double mint thank you, basically, this week for the sponsors. The main reason being is that a few weeks ago, I posted something in Patreon about how I kind of told you guys about it, where I thought my 2017 was super disappointed and I was super stressed. I basically made a post similar to that in Patreon weeks before. And going into the New Year's, I've had some people send me messages and say, you know, January's tight on money and stuff like that. And you guys need to know you're never obliged to support on Patreon. It is just there as a means of supporting the YouTube channel for the whole hashtag demonetized thing. So those of you who sent me messages saying that apologizing that, you know, January is going to be tight on money, or those of you who still have kept your support even though I haven't been incredibly active on Patreon, you guys deserve a double mint thank you. Because you kept it real. You kept it real. I kept it real with you. You kept it real with me, and I appreciate that. So with that, let's move on over into thanking our sponsors. I believe this sponsor list is 100% updated. If your name is here and it doesn't belong, or if your name is not here and it does belong, send me a message, because I noticed Patreon hadn't been sending me emails when I was getting messages from people for their names. So I did find a few here that belonged, but this should be up to date based on when I just looked at the billing for January just the other day. So again, this is to combat hashtag demonetized on YouTube and make sure we never need to delay any video that I release, regardless of its monetization status. We have our standard sponsors: Syd Hellwind of Gilgamesh, Afro Ninja from Malboro, Cheesecake from Leviathan, Sploda, That Lame Weeb, Ashen Emiya of Cerberus, Argoti, Fafarian, Rendil, Giraffeswillrule, Stevie-Rex, and Neon. We have our elite sponsors. Now, I'm probably going to fuck up some of these pronunciations. Rah Xephon from Exodus, Rynoet Westos, the Purple Warrior, the Serenity Free Company on Ultros, Iadric Red Steel on Exodus, Lexxie Valentine, Mantaru and the Rivivus Free Company on Zodiark, Marsh Techie, Ellisan Le'ore of Balmung, Sour Cream and Chives from Genova. I wrote it down and I don't know why I never say it week after week, but I put it in bold. Sour Cream and Chives, I got you. Goetia Valfer of Serren, Hersh First of Fairy, Phoenix Down Free Company on Goblin. I feel like I said that twice. Is this messed up? No, it's not. Okay. I'm just an idiot. Serren from Zodiark and Rynoet Chikara. Then we have our premium sponsors, the Serenity Free Company on Ultros. Oh, sorry. That's actually a premium. I wrote it down. I copy and pasted it over your old spot and then put it in the premium spot. So ignore when I said it before. No. The Serenity Free Company on Ultros is a premium sponsor. Kat Kazuma, Kiryoshi and the Reckless Tea Party Free Company on Cactar, Ignis Fairgun from the Diablo server, Velestra of Famfrit, Noct Cordish from Excalibur, Krovos Moonscar, Nakuniyame, Ira and the Avon Blanc Free Company on Zodiark, Johnny Odin of Tomberry, Private Mikey, Aqua's Sacrifice, Spike, Nani and Kirasame, Rudy Rudiger, TinColossus, Khuja Cross of Genova, Killer Hackman, Raul Jr, Darklight 2013, Arthur Ramil Gaming Bishop, and Kiltastic Jones. I'm pretty sure I got all of those right. And yes, the more I move my headphones, the more my hair becomes crazy mad scientist stupidness. Those should all be correct outside of the one mistake that I already just went and fixed, as I said it right there going into the premiums. So thank you, those of you supporting us over on Patreon. But on that note, I'm hungry and I got Folsom close. So I'm going to wrap things up on the YouTube side of things. Twitch, I'm going to hang out for like 1 or 2 more minutes. I'm either going to throw you guys over to GDQ, just going to host it because that's where I'm probably going to be for the rest of the day. Or I'll find someone else to host. But thank you for those of you watching on YouTube. Be sure to ask your questions in the thread. If you go to the description of the YouTube video, there should be a thread there, assuming I don't forget it because I'm an idiot. And you can go there to ask your questions, or you can tune in live to the Twitch chat on Sundays between 12:30 and 1 p.m. PST. It's usually when I start answering the forum questions, and then if you hang around, you'll be able to ask your own questions in the chat itself. But anyway, thank you, YouTube. Thank you again to our sponsors. I will see you guys next week. Twitch, I'll see you guys for a few more minutes, and until next time, take care.